And we're live.
Hello, everybody.
Happy Monday.
Something that I've wondered is, you know how in like YouTube videos where people will do like the little clip?
Yeah.
I wonder if we can just like do that. Like do it and like screenshot it like they do in the videos, or if that's something you should do separately.
Like to
I
add
don't
like at
know.
the beginning of the video, like
A
this is what we're
thumbnail.
going over.
A thumbnail. That's what I'm talking
Yes.
about. Yes.
Yeah. I'm sure we
Cuz
could.
cuz the last video our faces were just, I mean, they weren't horrible, but they were
I
just so
tried
off
to
guard.
I tried to figure out how to change it, but I couldn't. So I will look into that this time around. I'll
I
spend more
will
time on it.
say, to those that are watching, Bailey completely deserves all the credit for that last video and editing it. I almost deleted our whole video. Luckily, I found out that there's like ways to like avoid that happening. Like even if I had, no, I did. Even when I did delete it, Bailey still had the original copy, so it wouldn't have been like the end of the world. But I thought
It's
that I
fine. It's
deleted it.
fine.
I was like,
Yeah,
dude,
we're
all that
good.
work gone. But yeah, she got it uploaded. I did all that, or I tried to do all that, and it was so unsuccessful.
Oh, but dude, just getting the video to upload to YouTube, all it wanted was to verify your phone number. That's all it wanted because it was more than an hour long. And it wouldn't tell you that.
No, it,
I had to Google it
yeah,
and be
no,
like,
it
why
didn't.
can't I upload videos?
Well, because, well, like, tell me if this is what you ran into, but when I tried to upload it, it just kept saying that it wasn't processing correctly or
Yeah,
something
it just
like
kept
that.
giving
So
like an
you wouldn't
error.
think, yeah, you wouldn't think that it's something as easy as the
Mm-mm.
verification process.
No, because it never said anything about that.
Mm-mm. Mm. And before we get into today's discussion, I would like to show the coaster that my grandma made. I'm sure at some point she'll chime in and watch some of these. And she made this all by herself, guys. So good.
It's so pretty.
Okay, so does it hurt? This is actually going to be the first book that we're reviewing on our channel. And do you want to do the honors of explaining why we're starting with this specific author?
We're starting with this specific author because we have actually read Satan's Affair, Haunting and Hunting Adeline, and Where's Molly. Have you read Where's Molly yet?
The only one I haven't read yet. That's my next book.
Okay. So we are planning on going through H.D. Carlton's books. After we do Does It Hurt, we're going to start with Satan's Affair. I was about to give my opinion on Satan's Affair, and then I was like, you know what? I'm going to wait because we're going to have a video about
We'll
that.
save that. Yes. Yes.
But yeah, so we're starting with Does It Hurt because it's a one-off. There's not anything that goes with it. It's just singular.
A standalone. Yeah.
Yeah, standalone. That's what I was looking for.
Yeah, H.D. Carlton actually got us back. Like, I'm sure we've read before, but I would say recently she probably got us both into reading again because probably, I mean, maybe almost a year ago now, if not maybe like 6 months ago, um, Bailey and I went to the bookstore, and it was originally because I wanted to go to the bookstore to get some self-help books, right? Especially with anxiety. I was really struggling with anxiety at that time, and I just wanted to learn like the science behind anxiety, so I could better understand it. And I think that's when you had picked up Haunting Adeline,
Yeah.
not because it was going viral at the time. I don't think you even
No.
knew.
No,
You just
I
liked the
literally
cover,
just was
right?
like, well, it was that I like flipped through it and then I like just stopped on a page, and the page that I stopped on was a spicy scene. And I
Yeah.
was like, okay, yeah, I think I want to get this book. And then I
Yes.
got it. And that was it. It was just because I flipped through it, saw one page where it said some dirty things. And I was like, fuck it.
Yes, and that's when we found out on TikTok later on that this book was going viral. Like,
Yeah.
this was a thing, and she did not know that when she picked it up. So she recommended the book to me, and I remember when you were describing it to me. I'm not going to go on too much of a tangent because this isn't a Haunting Adeline talk, but it's the same author. But I was like, I don't know if I'd like that, but I read it and then I loved it. And then the real self-help book was smut. That's what the real self-help was.
100%
so,
true.
Yeah.
Really gives you a new sense of purpose in life.
Yeah, makes you feel alive again. I will say, so with Desert Hurt, I do feel like out of all of her books so far, or at least the ones that we've read, it's a different kind of cover. I do
Yeah,
like it.
it
Most of the other
definitely
covers are
is.
darker.
I like it. The only thing that I was thinking about literally right before we started was that in her description, she's supposed to have like curly hair. Or I guess I thought that like was curly, but in the picture, it looks like her hair is pretty straight,
Yeah.
which is a small detail. I still like the cover. I like the lighthouse. I think it's very like pretty. It still has the dark aspect of it. It's just
Yeah,
like has
right.
the white around it.
Mm-hmm.
But this doesn't look like what I pictured Sawyer to look like.
I thought I remembered, yeah, she has curly hair in the book, right?
It's supposed to be like
Yeah.
curly, like beach waves, and yeah. And also something else that I realized is these hands. Okay, if you look at these wrists, look how freaking tiny these wrists are, dude. Do you
Yeah.
like those can't be Enzo's hands because look how
Those are
it's-
definitely, there's no way.
they're
That almost
so.
looks like borderline skeleton.
That's what like maybe that was intentional. Maybe that's for maybe the ghost in the attic or like maybe Syl
Yeah.
or her brother. Maybe her
Yes.
brother.
Oh, we will, okay, before we start talking about the book, there will be spoiler warnings because we will be talking about a lot of the scenes in here. And then also, this is a pretty heavy book. If you're familiar with H.D. Carlton, she does write some heavy stuff that might not be like okay with everybody. So this is like your trigger warning now. I don't trying to
She
find
doesn't have.
the
I don't think she
there's
put a
not.
trigger warning in this book. No. Oh wait, no. Yes, she does. She does. She does an important note. Maybe.
Yeah, so it's dark romance. And then it goes into a lot of talk of like suicide, depression, anxiety, and just very explicit sexual content. So that's not your thing. I probably wouldn't keep watching this or read it.
Yeah.
And this is actually, from a lot of her other books, this is on the milder side. So you could also argue that if you're somebody who wants to slowly start getting introduced to heavier books or smuttier books, I would start with this one over any of her other books. Yeah, because the fact that this is milder is kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's definitely. Yeah. There's a reason they put trigger warnings on some of these books. But for some of us, it's just a menu list, you know? We're like, oh, yeah that's what's in here?
Yeah. Well, and it's nice to switch up, right? Like going from dark
Yeah.
romance and then going to something like light and fluffy, like the Twisted series here.
I'm so excited to start that series.
I can't wait for you to start that series. It's pretty good. It's just like, to me, like Hallmark, except
Smut.
yeah. Yeah, basically.
Okay, so does it hurt? Where do you want to start?
I guess I'll give like kind of a general description of what the book's about, just in case any of you haven't read it. So the premise of the book is you're following. I think it switches POVs between Sawyer, who's the main female character, and then Enzo, who's the main guy character. Sawyer's kind of running from her own little hidden past. So this book is a dark romance mixed with like a thriller and mystery. And so as you're reading, you're kind of trying to figure that out. And Enzo's a shark researcher. And so they both end up in Australia. And then from there, their interactions start to kind of unfold. And they get to a point where there's like they're stranded basically, and then they're forced to kind of unravel the rest of this like mystery thriller that's going on this island. So I guess we can start off with the introduction to Sawyer, and some of her backstory. Sawyer's personality to me is very she's just very silly. Like, you can tell she's saying what she's thinking.
She has no filter.
No filter, no. Which is different compared to Haunting Adeline, because Addie's a little more reserved.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Not
Definitely.
so much Sawyer. Sawyer just full sends it.
Yeah, no, she doesn't really think too much about it. Like, and it's funny too. Like, it's not just like, why would you say that? It's actually genuinely funny when she speaks like that.
Yes, I will say. So, do you remember? I don't remember the old man's name, but the guy that she meets at like the bus stop, or like right outside the once she gets to Australia.
Yes, I do. Simon. Oh
my gosh, I struggled so much when she was smoking cigarettes. I was like, ugh.
Yeah, but she was only doing it because she knew that it could possibly kill her.
Oh,
She wasn't even into
it. She wasn't. That makes it even more worse, though.
Yeah.
For what?
So how do you know?
Yes, and then she gets a tattoo from Simon. Oh my gosh. She does not care. I was like, oh, no. That's so unhygienic. Don't do that. Because it's with
octopus ink and just a needle that he has, right? Like,
yeah.
Yeah. And what does the tattoo say?
Oh my gosh, I don't remember. What does it say?
Fuck you.
Yeah, I knew it had the word fuck in it. On her knee, right? Or something, like on her thigh?
Yeah, it's like right above her knee. It's the same. She wanted it in the same spot that Simon had his, because he had the same tattoo. Yeah. And then, they just sit at the bus stop, and he's just using octopus ink and a needle that he had, and she trusted him. Which...
Yeah, she did not care. Which, I mean...
she jumps in the water after getting an infection.
Yeah, right? And doesn't she mention that she knows that she probably shouldn't, but she does anyway?
Yeah.
Yeah. So... Our girl's not very... She just don't care. I don't even want to say that she's not very smart, because she knows, and she just does it anyway. So...
She doesn't really have like a want for life.
Yeah. There was in the beginning when I was skimming through the book where... I didn't notice this, but where she's wearing orange flip-flops, and I was like, ooh, brother, ugh. I was judging Sawyer hella hard. I really was.
She was just trying to survive, man. Over here judging her flip-flops.
She was, but orange flip-flops?
Maybe she really likes the color orange.
No, that's punishable.
Can we talk about how smart Sawyer has to be, though, to get away with the amount of identity she's stolen and not gotten caught? I mean, Enzo caught her, but, like, the fact that she's gotten away with this for, like... And, I mean, I don't feel like... I mean, Australia's big, but, like... It's a little crazy to me that she never got caught, because she talked about how she did it with a lot of people.
Yes. Well, and that goes into the like... very fictional aspect of it, because I don't know if you remember, but even when she flies to Australia, that's not originally where she was going to go, which realistically you can't really on the whim.
That's true. Yeah,
she had to change it because there was, I forget who she was with, but somebody was on to her, right?
There was a girl at the airport who knew who she was because they were looking for her.
Yeah,
and she could tell the girl recognized her. And so she ran and just got on another plane.
Yeah. And then that's where she ended up in Aussie land. And then I think, I'm trying to remember, I think she meets Enzo in the bar.
Yeah.
And they end up sleeping together?
I would just call it fucking.
Yes.
Because they go to that cave.
Yes. By the way, guys, this was within like an hour or two of her meeting him.
This is this early in the book.
Yes, very early on in the book. So this isn't a slow burn kind of book. It is in a sense in the romantic aspect, but not so much in the smut department.
Because it would be considered enemies to lovers, right? Because they don't really,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. Basically. Yeah, and that cave area scene, it was pretty good. It was pretty good. H.D. Carlton never lacks in the descriptive smut department.
No,
She knows what
she
she's
really
doing every
does.
time. So there was that scene, and then yes, Sawyer actually he takes her back to his place, I believe, and I think was it. I don't know if it was the same day or if they meet up again on a separate
It
day.
was this. It was the same day. They did the do in the cave, and then he took her back to his place, and then they fucked all night.
Oh
And
yeah,
then
they
she
did it
got
again.
up in the morning, yeah, and broke into his office and broke into his
Yes, and
desk and stole his
yes,
stuff.
stole his identity because she's still in survival mode, right? So she steals his identity and just leaves. And Enzo wakes up and realizes that something just feels off.
He
And so he
knew.
goes. Yeah, he knew once he saw that his shit was missing, or like his drawer was open, or something that's not usually
Hmm.
how he leaves it. And so Enzo makes it his now mission to hunt her down and make sure she knows that he's not one to be messed with. Which he does exactly that.
Yeah, yeah, he does. Because he goes. He finds her the second time by chance too, because she's just walking down the beach, and he's out there and he sees her,
Mm-hmm.
and he wants to see if she'll freak out and run the other way, or if she'll act like nothing happened. And she does.
And
She
that's
acts
what
like
he
nothing
does.
happened.
Yes,
Yeah.
because he plays it off like that, like he doesn't know.
He's like, yeah, you want to spend more time together? Let's get on my
Yeah.
boat.
Yep. And then that leads to probably the most talked about scene of this book. Isn't it? Is it chapter 7?
Let's see.
I feel like it. I feel like it is. But the boat scene.
Let's see. Okay, I found it. Let's see. It's chapter 7.
Yes.
Chapter 7.
Chapter 7.
Oh man, that chapter is wild, dude. He's
I
like,
don't
you
even
wanted to
know.
be a shark expert.
Yes. So okay, so if you guys haven't read it, I'm going to say it. I'm trying not to blush while I'm talking about it. But he takes her out on the boat. And really what Enzo is doing is he's baiting Sawyer out so that she really has nowhere to escape. And so he does that.
And she goes
And
too.
she does go. She's so dumb. For someone
Well,
so smart, she's so dumb.
she says she knows she shouldn't go with him, but she does it anyway.
And so they go on this boat. And remember, Enzo is a shark expert, which plays into this next part. They go out into the ocean, isolated from everybody else. And Enzo has his way with her.
Do you want me to?
Yeah.
He takes her out onto the boat or whatever, and he starts throwing chum in the water. Like, he's gonna show her the sharks, and that's how he got her onto the boat. He's like, do you want to, like, let me show you the sharks, right?
Yeah.
And so he's throwing chum in the water, and he's like talking to her, and then he has her come sit down at the edge of the boat, and they're like talking, and he's just making like regular conversation, like he doesn't know that she stole his identity. And then he starts to touch her and all of that stuff, and then they start fucking. And then while they're fucking and the sharks are starting to like swarm where the chum is, he's like, did you think you could steal from me? I think it's something like that. And then she realizes that he
That he
knows what
knows.
she did.
Yeah.
And then he and one of the things that he promises her before they get on the boat is a kiss, because he doesn't kiss people. And
Mm-hmm.
so then he kisses her on the boat, but when he kisses her, he like latches onto her bottom lip and makes her bleed. And then he
Yeah.
shoves her head in the water while he's fucking her, and the sharks are swarming in the water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That scene was wild. I did, before reading this book, I didn't know the full extent or the backstory
Yeah.
of it, but this is a scene that I heard so many people talk about. So I did know that something along the lines of that with the sharks was going to happen. But reading it was a whole nother experience.
Yeah.
Yes, it's just so different. I've never read a scene like that before, so
It's a
that was
lot
pretty
of
wild.
imagination, right, on H.D. Carlton's part. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you really have to have like a wild imagination to be like, you know what they're
Yeah,
gonna do? They're
yeah,
gonna fuck with sharks in the water.
yeah. Right. That was crazy. And then karma almost instantly happens. Really, to both
Yeah.
yeah, both of them really.
Yeah.
So I think right as they're done, and then Sawyer obviously after that feels kind of like violated in a sense
Yeah.
because that she was led under false pretenses, even though that was also what happened with Enzo. But
Yeah.
a storm happens and makes the boat like flip over, and eventually they find their way onto this deserted island. Basically, it's very small though because it's where the lighthouse is. And I think Sawyer had actually swam both of them to shore, and Enzo was
Yep.
unconscious.
Yep.
So I don't think he knows that until later on in the book. And then that's where the mystery and thriller starts to come into play. Oh, somebody knocked on the door. That's where the mystery and thriller starts to come into play. And you're introduced to, I don't remember his name, the lighthouse keeper.
Syl.
You're
I think his
so
name is
good with names.
Sylvester.
Sylvester.
Well,
Yeah.
I just went kind of like skimmed it this morning too. Yeah,
Yes.
Syl, and then they call him Syl.
Yes, Sylvester. So he's the lighthouse keeper. He's on this island all by himself.
Red flag number 1.
Yes. That in itself was weird. And I think Enzo immediately knows that something's off with the guy.
Yeah.
Sawyer,
Like
I think
him.
it takes Sawyer, I think it takes a little longer. I think she can kind of tell he's a little maybe off, but she also he's letting them stay with him. So she's also trying to
Yeah.
be very kind to him. But do you want to talk about what happens at night? So they're sharing a room, by the way, everybody. They're sharing a room.
So they're sharing a room and they're locked in that room because Syl doesn't. He tells them, "Y'all can stay here." And then Enzo said he would sleep on the couch, I think. And Syl is like, "That's not going to work because I don't like people in my living area. Y'all will go to your room and stay in the room until certain. I think it's like from like 9 p.m. to like 5 or 6 a.m. Like, and then he locks them in the room, so they have to stay there all night. And while they're there in the room at night, you hear like these chains rattling upstairs. Now he's supposed to be the only one in this lighthouse. Like, they haven't seen anybody or anything like that. Like, there's no boats coming and going from the island. Like, and they're hearing like the chains being like dragged along the floor above them. And then are they, I can't remember, are they hearing like, they're not hearing any like sounds though, right? Like groaning or anything like that. Like,
I don't think so.
I think it's just the chains dragging on
Yes,
the
I think
floor.
it's just the chains, and then over time it progressively gets worse where sometimes isn't it like banging on the door too, or like twisting the knob and shit.
Yeah, it comes down.
That's
whatever
where it gets
is,
creepy.
it comes downstairs and it starts banging on their door. But their door is locked, so it's not like they can even get, like, they can't. No, they don't know what it is. And when they ask Syl says that it's the ghost of these convicts who washed up on his shore years ago.
Yeah.
Which, BFFR.
Here's what's so funny is when it comes to H.D. Carlton, she does like to add that spooky feeling to her books, because even in like Haunting Adeline, the manor that Addie's staying in has like ghosts and like spirits, and like sometimes you'll just they could just hear them walking around, and it's something that H.D. Carlton kind of breezes over, like it's just normal.
Yeah.
Like Addie doesn't care, Zayd doesn't care. She kind of does the same thing in a certain sense, but it's just the ghost, no biggie. Where in real life, I would be like, oh heck no,
Absolutely not.
I'm out. Yeah, absolutely not.
Bang, I'm talking like bang, like shaking like the like roof.
Yeah.
Frick no.
Now, to read it, though, I get so excited. I'm like, oh my
Yes.
gosh, what's
Like, what
happening
is
right
that?
now?
Oh.
Yes, but if I was actually in it, no. I don't play around with that stuff.
It's
But yeah, so
terrifying. And
I think oh, and then there's one moment too where they're in the room and there's like a small window in the room that they're sharing and they see a girl out on the beach and you can her back is facing them, so she's facing out towards the ocean. Wasn't she naked? I don't remember if she was
uh
wearing like a white dress or if she was naked.
I don't think she was I think she was wearing the white nightgown.
Okay, yes. And she's just, yeah, just like staring out towards the ocean, which is weird because there's nobody else. And
Yeah.
yeah, and so early on, I feel like you kind of you don't know what exactly happened, but like for example with Sylvester, you know early on in the book that he had two daughters, right? And
Mm-hmm.
a wife. And
Yes.
he doesn't say, I don't think he says right away. Oh no, he's never the one that says what happened to them. But because they're not there on that island with him, I feel like you kind of naturally as a reader already know that that has something to do with his family.
Yeah.
So it wasn't the biggest plot twist, but
I think he does eventually tell them that his wife left him and took. So I guess I'm getting kind of into the later part of the book, but he says that
mm-hmm.
one of his daughters offed herself.
Yeah.
And when that happened, his wife took the other daughter and left him. And so that's why he was there by himself all those years.
Mm-hmm.
And his wife had asked him, like, before his daughter had ended her life, like, they had asked him, like, if they could leave the island. Because he's supposed to be the watcher over this lighthouse, right? But he chose that over his family. And his wife wanted to leave, like, and go somewhere else so the kids could, like, experience real life, I guess.
Yeah.
And then she ended up leaving anyway once the one daughter ended her life.
Mm-hmm.
I should put quotes.
And there's a scene. This scene was wild, where they're kind of being nosy and they go into Sylvester's room. And when they go into Sylvester's room, as they're exploring it, Sylvester magically like shows up and they can hear him walking from downstairs, coming upstairs. And
Because
there's
he's a
no
peg
time
leg.
to yeah, cuz he has a peg leg. And there's no time to leave the room. So they run, Sawyer and Enzo run into his closet. Shut it. Enzo then proceeds to come into his room. And Enzo does some very sneaky, filthy stuff to Miss Sawyer in that closet. Wow, Sylvester is right outside.
He, like, takes a nap, doesn't he? Doesn't he, like, lay down in bed? And Enzo's just telling her to be quiet while he's
Yeah.
just hands deep in her shorts.
Yeah, basically. That scene was wild.
That scene
It was kind of
definitely
exciting,
gives you
though.
that little... Yeah, it gives you, like, that
Yeah, that
suspense,
adrenaline.
you know?
Yeah. Because for some people, right, it's like that fear of getting caught. So
Yeah.
she definitely played that very well in that scene. That scene was pretty wild.
They get out, too, right? Like, because he's asleep, so they, like, creep out,
Yeah.
don't they? Okay.
They get out, but I think it's either as they enter the room or as they're leaving, they find the
pictures.
what is it? The pictures, and then I don't remember if it's in the same occasion or a different time, but they also find the like buckets of like
Mm-hmm. The
what is
feeding
it called?
bags, right?
Yes. And that in itself is weird. So
Yeah.
they know somebody's using these feeding bags. And so as a reader, you're
Yeah.
kind of like
What
tables
is
start
that?
turning. Yeah, and the chain that you hear at night, it just seems a little too like not
There are
like
pieces.
I don't know. Yeah, pieces are starting to piece together. So, yeah. What's on the picture again that they find?
It's of his daughters. Oh, it's of his daughters. And when Sawyer sees, I think it's his older daughter.
Mm-hmm.
It's the girl she saw in the ocean.
Yes.
Yeah, it's the girl she
Yes.
saw in the ocean, and then she questions it, because then, like you said earlier, like it progressively, like gets more, like the ghost gets more aggressive, banging on their door, like
Mm-hmm.
scratching on the walls, dragging their
Yes.
chains. I do think it cries. It starts to cry, like,
Yeah.
and she can hear like the ghost crying
Yeah.
upstairs.
And all the meanwhile, by the way, so in regards to the development of the relationship between Enzo and Sawyer, so during this time, it's very hot and cold. It took me a while to get into liking Enzo because he's really a douchebag to her. I understand why. Like, she did steal his identity, and so he doesn't trust her. But
Mm-hmm.
with that being said, I would say for most of the book, he, like, just, it's like he hates her. He's just a douchebag to her. And then some days he's, he has a little softer moments where it seems like he's starting to trust her, but it's just very
Yeah,
all over the place that it made it hard for me to really grow attached to their dynamic.
he struggles with the fact that he does like her,
Mm-hmm.
because when she stole his identity, it could be really damaging, right? Because he's this top researcher, he has his own research facility, like he's very important, and she stole his identity. And she didn't even spend it on any. I think she spent less than $1,000. I think he asks her like, "How much did you spend?" And she only spent like a small amount. Like,
Yeah.
I think she got a place to stay for the night or something like that, like the next night.
Mm.
But I think it was hard for me too to kind of like get into him, because he was a dick. He was so mean
Yes.
to her, and it's not
Yeah.
like she was mean to him. Like, you could tell she was struggling with stuff, but he didn't trust her. He just thought she was a thief, and that
Yeah.
his nickname for her, Bella Ladre, which was
Yeah.
beautiful, beautiful thief, right? Yeah,
Yeah. Yes. And so he's just so like hot and cold throughout the book. And there was something specific I was going to say in that regard. Oh, like so another, I guess, argument to that point that we just made is Sawyer also doesn't give him closure as to why she did what she did either. So he's kind of just left like assuming she is just a thief, but she also again makes no attempt to like explain to him
yeah,
what's going on. And so I think we can actually talk about her past already, right? Like
yeah,
she
yeah.
had what her real brother, a
It
twin
was her
brother,
real
right?
brother. Yeah, she had a twin
Ugh.
brother.
I hated that aspect of the book.
Hmm.
Ugh. Just because in real life, if that ever happened, like I just would hate it. It just gives me this icky feeling.
It's supposed to give you the icky feeling,
It
right?
is. It
It's not
is. So
supposed to be.
her brother, who is also wasn't he a
He's a,
police officer as well?
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Her brother. She didn't come from a good family upbringing. Her parents had always kind of like favored her brother. Between the two of them, and her brother basically like touches her inappropriately, incest. Um, even when it's unwanted, and because he's in like the police department and her family already kind of has a bias towards favoring him, nobody
Well,
really would.
her parents died. Their parents died, and then he was taking care of her.
Yeah, but wasn't he doing it before then too,
He
or
was
no?
doing it before then, but then they
Yeah, so
died, and then
she
yeah,
never told
yeah,
anybody. Yeah, so she
yeah.
never tells anybody because she knows that nobody would like believe her, or she had hinted at something happening, and her parents had like,
They were like, "Don't. Why would you ever say that?" Like,
yeah. Either way, they just weren't supportive of her in general. So
they didn't believe her.
yes, so that also kind of goes into her family history, and so something happens one day where I think what was it? Enough was enough, and she, when her brother forced himself on her again, she killed him.
Yeah, yeah. He had came home, and she knew that he was gonna try and do that with her again, and she had said no, she had said stop, and he didn't. He was like forcing himself onto her, and then he was saying some like real like nasty shit to her, and then
Yeah.
she fucking stabbed him. She stabbed him in the
Mm-hmm.
side, and then left him there and ran, and he
Yes.
died.
Yes, and because he was a
Which,
police officer, she
mm-hmm,
was basically wanted for that crime, and it was even worse, right? Um,
yeah.
for her, it looked worse. So yeah, she ran away, and so this is why she's like changing identities and constantly on the move and in this survival fight or flight mode. Um, which, yeah, Enzo doesn't know, and so he doesn't trust her at all. And then it kind of happens. I would say I didn't really like how it happened, but when he does like her, it just feels so I don't know. It just feels so random. Like,
He's just kind of like up and chose to like her now. Like,
yes, like I said, that hot and cold. Like they're I don't know. I didn't really care for that.
because there's no
Suddenly
real
one
like
day he loved her.
gradual. Yeah, yeah. There's no gradual like he starts to love her. Like it's just. I think I forgive you now.
Yeah, and then he just loves her. And one thing about me, y'all, I hate that. I'm also a slow burn girly in general, so I don't like when it's just like all over the place. I like a build up, and it was too much of the hate aspect and not enough of that love. So it doesn't just change in a day, you know?
Yeah, and I do. He does do that hot and cold where you really do think that H.G. Carlton does a good job of making you think that he doesn't like her. You know,
Mhm.
we could give her that, but it does, I guess, make their love story a little less appealing.
Right. Like I didn't have after I finished the book that feeling of like, oh, man, like I want to love like this or I love them. You
Yeah,
know, I didn't really
no,
have that. Where with Haunting and Hunting, we definitely had that. Granted, she did write this before she
yeah.
wrote those two books. So obviously you learn over time and your writing gets better. But yeah, with Zayd and Addie, I did have that, and they're one of the couples you always see people talking about. Whereas in this, I don't think most people had an attachment to the characters.
No one can top Zayd. I
Reese,
definitely did. Yeah. Well, wait, we had
maybe.
this discussion. We had this
Yeah,
discussion.
we did. We did. Mr. Ambrose
He,
is my favorite. I think Zayd was still your favorite though, right?
yeah, Zayd's still my favorite.
Yeah,
I
he's
don't
your
think
all-time
anyone's
favorite.
gonna top Zayd.
My all-time favorite is Mr. Ambrose, but we'll get down to that nitty-gritty one day because that is a whole can of worms. That is a whole can of worms.
I did you find yourself attracted to Enzo at all? Because I did not.
No. You
What?
didn't?
No.
No, I didn't.
No.
Truly.
Every
I
time I tried to picture him, I was like, brother, ooh.
Dude, you know who I was thinking of? I was thinking of have you ever watched 365 Days?
Yeah. Yes. That's who
Yes,
you were picturing?
that's who I was picturing, and don't get me wrong, the guy is, like, obviously not ugly, but I don't know if it's just me, but have you ever seen, like, somebody that's almost too attractive or, like, too I don't know what the word is to where it's unattractive.
It's just not your type. Not my type either.
It's just, like, too much. I don't know.
You're too pretty.
You know?
I did,
Yeah, it's
but when
just
I
a little
pictured
too
Enzo, I didn't even picture him like the guy that I pictured off of the description was just not
Yeah.
attractive.
Yeah, so as I'm reading it, I'm, like, picturing somebody else.
Yeah, yeah.
He's just a
I'm
big
picturing
question mark.
Zayd.
Yeah, right? He I also found the, like, I don't know, the Spanish part of it, like, when he's calling her, like, "My little thief," and, like, so I don't know, it was kinda cringe to me. I did struggle
It's
with it a little
Italian.
bit. Oh,
Italian.
Italian. Yes,
Yeah.
he's Italian. It
I
did make me cringe a little bit.
really.
Yeah. Did you like
I
it?
didn't. I didn't mind the Italian. I liked it. I
Okay.
liked that he spoke to her like that, and she didn't know what he was saying.
Mhm.
I liked it, but
Mhm.
I'm also a sucker for accents like that. So,
Yeah. Fair enough.
should we talk about the ghost in the attic?
Yes. So, you find out that this quote unquote ghost is actually his daughter, which we kind of guessed early on. It's the younger one, right? Because the older one was the one that
Yeah, I
died.
think so.
Yes. And her mouth is like sewn shut. Yeah, and she like obviously she like smells bad, like not hygienic because Sylvester's not taking care of her. He just doesn't want her to leave. Um,
That's what the feeding bags were for, because he sewed
that's
her
what the
mouth
feeding
shut.
bags were for. Yes. And that's why that it was her that was connected to chains, and she stays at the very top of the lighthouse. The reason that I guess the reason that they went up to the lighthouse is because they Enzo and Sawyer were starting to get, especially Enzo, were starting to get really sussed out about like reaching out to people because I think he had said that a shipment only comes in once a month. And Sylvester just never really made any effort to try to get them help or try to get them off this island. So they were like, okay, we need to like do some investigating. And we also always hear these chains upstairs. Like, so they're going upstairs to try and find a contact or like a radio thing. And yeah, when they go up there, that's what they see is his daughter sewn up, chained up. Um, yeah.
Well, and this is after. So Sylvester tries to get Sawyer to stay. He
Mm-hmm.
like has already made like some advances with her, and she's
Yes,
made it
that's
known that
right.
she's not, and Enzo's not like
Yeah.
not interested.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a point where Syl tells her like, if you don't stay, I'll call the cops because I know they're looking for you. You may like, I can tell that you've done stuff. And when she says no, I'm not, like, I'm gonna go figure my shit out, but I'm not staying here with you, that's when he pulls the shotgun out and
Yes.
he like threatens them or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then they go looking for the beacon, which is at the top of the lighthouse, and that's where is her name Raven? Was she Raven? Because it's
I
called
don't
Raven Isle.
remember. I don't remember.
Which whichever one she, I think it says it in the end of the book. But yeah, she's up there in chains.
Yeah. And then yeah, at that point from there, that's when stuff starts to go really wild. Like they're fighting with Sylvester. I think at one point they locked him in the basement.
Yeah, they locked him in like a little cellar that he had, and then he got out.
Yeah, he got out. Um I don't know why. A lot of the fight is kind of like a blur to me. But he dies. Sylvester dies. Enzo kills him.
Yeah, so Enzo, they get into a fight and then they lock him in the cellar, right? And then he gets out,
Mm-hmm.
and they're in this time, that's when they're trying to find the beacon, right, to go upstairs. And then they
Mm-hmm.
do go upstairs, and they find, like, I think it's behind a hidden bookshelf or something. They find the staircase to the beacon up top.
Yes. Yeah.
And then they find her, the daughter, upstairs, and then Syl gets out of the cellar, and he like knocks Enzo out, I think, and then like puts him down in the cellar, and then Enzo
Mm-hmm.
starts a fire.
Yes.
He starts a fire in the lighthouse underneath the boards,
Yes.
and then he gets out, but I forget how Enzo gets out.
I don't remember how he gets out either. I do remember that a lot of the time the daughter, so she can't talk, right? Like her mouth is like sewn shut, but you can tell she's having a constant battle between mental battle if she wants to help her dad, who is her dad, even though he's done atrocious things to her. Um
Atrocious.
yes, she's having that confliction on if she should be helping him or helping Enzo and Sawyer, because there's also a little part of her that knows that this is wrong and she wants her freedom. And so eventually she and during this time when they're kind of battling it out, sometimes she's helping her dad, and then she slowly, I think at one point, the dad Sylvester goes to shoot Enzo, and doesn't she like run in front or like shove him, and the bullet hits her
Yeah, she takes
instead.
the bullet for Enzo.
Yes, and Sylvester immediately like goes to her because he just shot his daughter. And at that point, it's really sad that the daughter had to die in order for that to happen. But
Yeah.
Sylvester, that's also when he meets his fate.
In my head, it's like that's where you drew the line. Like you shot her. You not when you sewed her mouth shut, not when you had to
Yeah.
force her to eat through feeding tubes, but
Because it's that attachment, right? That like unhealthy
yeah.
obsession where he
Yeah.
didn't want her to leave. And so
Same
now
thing with
she is
Sawyer.
leaving.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now she is leaving in a different sense of the word. And then what inevitably happens is after like the police come and they do get help, uh, Sawyer ends up look, and just to say, they know that it's kind of messed up, right? But they're also
Yeah.
hoping that this can be the good out of it. Sawyer takes the daughter's identity because nobody really knew that the daughter existed,
Mhm.
right? Because she's trapped on this island all her life. Um, and so Sawyer takes her identity, and yeah, that's how she can kind of like move on with Enzo.
Yeah, yeah, cuz they stay together. She work with him at the research facility then? And
Yeah, I
like
think so.
yeah, she takes his last name
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, I don't think they get married. I think she just changes her last name to his. And
Yeah.
he wants her to take it.
Yeah. Yep. So I feel like that's most of the premise of the book. I don't think there's
Yeah.
more to it than that. I'm trying to think if I missed any details.
Did you have a favorite scene?
I don't know. Probably the closet scene. It just seems so like sneaky.
Yeah.
What
You're a
about you?
suspense girly.
I am a suspense girly. I love like my creepy stuff.
I I like the boat scene because you know I'm a filthy
Look,
smart
I get
reader.
it. I get it. That was definitely up there for me too.
It was a nice little scene.
Yes.
Oh, but I will say probably my favorite line in the book, which I told you the other day, is when she sees Enzo's for the
Oh,
first
yeah.
time, and she's like, "Oh fuck no, that thing's gonna puncture a lung."
Yeah.
And that goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning about how she just says whatever comes
That's
to
what
her
she's
mind.
thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, literally, they're about to do the do, and she's just like, oh no, that
Yeah.
thing's gonna puncture a lung."
That was very early in their like before they were
That was
even
like the
dating or
third
like anything
chapter.
like that. Yes. She had no filter.
None whatsoever.
So, what do you think? I think we should do this with every book that we read. Out of 5 stars, what would you give Does It Hurt by Miss H.D. Carlton?
I'd give it. I give it a 3.5.
Okay.
I
I can
enjoyed
agree
it.
with that. Yes.
I enjoyed it. It's not nearly as good as Haunting,
No.
but it's not. It's not. I don't. I wouldn't give it 1 or 2. I feel like three and a
Mhm.
half is a good like medium. I
Yes.
enjoyed it. It was a good book.
Yes.
Not like not a super fan, like big fan of the. I don't know, just how the relationship played out. Which,
Yeah, right.
yeah,
Yes. I would probably I agree. I would give it a 3. A solid 3. I'm like glad I read it. I don't regret reading it. It's still a good read. I don't necessarily say that it's like boring. It's not necessarily also like super exciting. Um but I don't see myself wanting to read it again. That's why even when you and I were skimming through it, I found myself getting very bored.
mm-hmm.
And then it starts to also seem kind of like cringy in some parts.
Yes,
Yeah, so I'm gonna give it a 3. Still worth the read though. Still worth the read.
definitely still worth the read, especially if you're just getting into like either H.D. Carlton or
Dark romance.
yeah,
Would you
in general.
classify it as a dark romance? I mean, sure, like the smutty scenes, but like,
Yes, only because that first scene on the boat is non-consensual, even though it's made to
yeah,
be like she enjoyed it and all of that, like the way
yeah,
that is like set up.
yeah,
All most of these books like that. I think that's part of what gives it the dark romance vibe.
Mm-hmm.
And that there was a lot, because there were also a lot of, like, he murdered a lot of people, still did. Because that's what I forgot. When Enzo was in that, when he put Enzo underneath the floorboards, there were, like, skeletons on skeletons down there. Homie was killing
Right.
people.
He was. Yes, that's true. Bro was insane.
Actually insane. He really thought Sawyer was going to stay with him.
Dude, there was this one movie, like, now that we're talking about it out loud, it's reminding me of a movie that I watched, and it was a scary movie. I can't remember what the name of the movie is called, but it has Jennifer Lawrence in it. And there's a guy that she ends up liking, and the guy, like, the more that she hangs out with him, like, sometimes she hears weird sounds. Like, his parents don't live with him, like, nobody lives with him. And she hears, like, weird sounds sometimes. And then in the house that she's living in, I think, like, at one point she sees a girl, like, running in the forest, and, like, same thing, like, flowy dress, really dark hair. And she ends up finding out. I don't really want to spoil it too much, because if you end up, like, watching it, it's a pretty good movie.
House at the End of the Street.
Yes. If you guys have watched that movie, have you watched that movie?
I have not.
Okay, I'm not going to go too into it, but it's kind of similar. So I think it's worth the watch.
Okay.
I remember as a kid, when I watched that, I had no business watching that as a kid, but I'm sick in the head, so I don't regret it. But yeah, that movie was kind of similar to this, so worth the watch.
I'll have to check it out, and you all should check it out too.
Yes. Yeah, guys.
Okay.
So that pretty much wraps up our first book review.
Y'all should definitely read Does It Hurt if you haven't read it. If you're
Yes.
into the stuff that we talked about, it's still worth the read. There are definitely
It's still very
things
dark. Like, don't.
Yeah.
It is dark. It has trigger warnings, so read the trigger warnings at the beginning of the book. If you don't, anything past that point, that's at your own discretion. So.
Oh, always read the trigger list. Always, always.
Yes.
You never know.
Yeah. Right.
All right. Well, thanks, guys, for tuning in to Bookish Brigade.
Thank you. And next week, we are going to be reviewing another book by H.D. Carlton, which is going to be Satan's Affair.
Yep.
I have it right behind me, right here. So, yes, stay tuned for that.
All right. Thanks for viewing.
Thanks. Bye.